project, I'm actually going to use 3 different colors, of which I'm just using leftover yarns. And they are 400% acrylic 4-ply yarns, and I'm going to use a 3.75mm crochet hook. To start, actually you're just going to start with any color that you want. In my case, I'm going to start with this pink one. So to begin, just make a magic ring. Insert the hook inside, yarn over like this, and chain 1. Now make 16 double crochet in this magic ring. Once you get a total of 16 double crochet stitches inside a magic ring, just pull this yarn under like this and slip stitch on top of the first double crochet stitch you have started with to join your work. Chain 1 to close, and you can cut off the yarn because to move to round 2 you're going to use a different yarn color. To move to round 2, I'm going to use this color, which is kind of peach. Make a slip knot. Start in one of the double crochet stitch. Chain 1 to fully attach the yarn. Now yarn over. Insert the hook back into the same stitch, yarn over like this. 3 loops on the hook, yarn over again. Insert the hook back into the same stitch, yarn over like this. Now you have a total of 5 loops on the hook, yarn over again. Insert the hook back into the same stitch like this. You must have a total of 7 loops on the hook. Now yarn over and pull through all 7 loops on the hook to create your first puff stitch. Chain 1 to fully close your puff stitch. Now do the same stitch in each of the next double crochet stitches. At the end, you must have a total of 16 puff stitches. Like I said, to make a puff stitch, actually yarn over, insert the hook into the next stitch like this, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over again, insert the hook back into the same stitch, yarn over, pull through like this. Again, do it one more time, and you must have a total of 7 loops on the hook. Actually, you're going to do the same thing 3 times to have a total of 7 loops on the hook. Now yarn over and pull through all 7 loops on the hook like this. Chain 1 to fully close your puff stitch, and you're just going to do the same thing all around until you have a total of 16 puff stitches around like this. So like at this point, since you can see it looks like it's a bit complicated, so which means you're not going to insert the hook into this space, you're going to actually to set it into this next space. And to avoid having so many yarn tails, you can just keep on bringing these yarn tails as well also to work them in. So just go ahead, do the same thing all around until you reach this point. I'll come meet you once I reach this point to come show the next step. Once you have completed your last puff stitch, just chain 1 as usual and slip stitch on top of this first puff stitch you have started with. Chain 1 to close your work, and you can cut off the yarn because to move to the third round you're actually going to use again another different yarn color. But if you want, you can use any yarn color of your choice, either the same yarn color or a different one. It's very much up to you. In my case, I'm going to switch it to a different yarn color, of which I'm going to switch to this purple one. Next, just start off by making a slip knot, and you're going to work in between these puff stitches. And you can start in between any puff stitch of your choice. Chain 1 to fully attach your yarn, then make a double crochet back into that same space. 2 more double crochet back into the same space to have a total of 3 double crochet stitches. Next, you're going to do the same thing into this next space. Make 3 double crochet into the next space. Three double crochet into the next space as well. And actually you're going to do the same thing into this next space, of which this next space you're going to create your first corner. So just start off by making 3 double crochet stitches as usual into this same space. Chain 2, 3 double crochet back into the same space to create your first corner. This is how your stand bust must start to look like. So next you're just going to repeat the same thing you have done here. Into each of the next 3 spaces, make 3 double crochet stitches in each space. And you can just continue working in these yarn tails to avoid having so many yarn tails at the end of your project. The fourth one, try to make your second corner. Make 3 double crochet into this fourth space. Chain 2, 3 double crochet back into the same space. And I'm just going to repeat the same thing actually. So next, just into this next 3 spaces, repeat the same thing you have done in between here. It is just going to be the same pattern actually until you have a total of 4 corners. Once you made 3 double crochet stitches in between like this, next you're going to make your third corner. Chain 2 as usual, then make 3 double crochet back into the same space. So once you made your 3 double crochet stitches in between like you usually do, next you're going to complete this space that you have started with. So once you reach this point, just make 3 double crochet into this last space to create your fourth corner. Chain 2, make 3 double crochet back into the same space. Then slip stitch on top of this first double crochet stitch you have started with to join your work. Actually chain 1 to close, and you can cut off the yarn and you are done. So just go ahead and make a total of 63 sunburst granny squares, actually depending on the size you are making, but in my case, since I'm making size small, I'm just going to make up to 63 sunburst granny squares, of which they are all made with a 4-ply 100% acrylic yarn. And for the puff stitches, if you're struggling making puff stitches, these ones you can just make 3 double crochet stitches back into this, but instead of completing the double crochet stitches, you should have to leave them incomplete. Let me just quickly show you. Just quickly make a demonstration of how you're going to do the double crochet stitches instead of doing the puff stitches. If in case you are struggling, I'm just going to do it on any random project. Actually just start with a slip stitch, and then you can start in any stitch of your choice. Actually in that case, since you are working in this in the round, which means you're going to start on top of the double crochet stitch, chain 1 to fully attach your yarn like that, yarn over, insert the hook back into the same stitch, yarn over, pull through 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook, 2 loops on the hook again, yarn over, insert the hook back into the same stitch, yarn over, pull through. Now we have 4 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over again, insert the hook into the same stitch, yarn over. Now you have a total of 5 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops on the hook. Now you have a total of 4 loops on the hook, and you can just yarn over and pull through all 4 loops on the hook, chain 1 to fully close your part. And this is just how the thing is going to look like instead of making a puff stitch, in case you are struggling with this part. But if you are fine making the puff stitch, just go ahead and make puff stitches. But if you are struggling, then just do the same thing I have just demonstrated now here, and just continue doing the same thing until you made a total of all 14 stitches like that, before we move on to the last round, which is the third round. So here's the layout of how my sunburst granny squares are looking like, and this is the back panel. I have actually already started joining it off camera, but I haven't yet done. So this is how they look like. So actually it's 5 by 5, whereas 5 starburst granny squares like this, and as well as 5 starburst granny squares like this, which is equivalent to 25 granny squares, or let me say it's a total of 25 granny squares for the back panel. And for the front panel, actually you just to make like 5 straight like this, all the way 5 straight like this, and here just to take 1 row of the same way, here just to take 1 row in between like this, to have a total of how many. For the front panel, actually you're going to do the same thing, but for the front panel, instead of making 5 by 5, you're just going to make 5 by 2, of which what I mean is each front panel is just going to be like consist of 5 starburst granny squares to be like this, which is actually the length of the cardigan, and 2 only like this, instead of making 3 or more, just 2. So for the front panels, this is how they must look like, whereas they have a total of 5 sunburst granny squares like for the back, which is the length of the cardigan. And instead of making more, I'm just going to make 2 sunburst granny squares across like that, and it's consists of about 20 sunburst granny squares in total, of which each front panel consists of 10 starburst granny squares. And for sleeves, you're actually going to make 3 by 3 per sleeve, which is equivalent to 9 squares per sleeve. And in total, you have to make a total of 18 squares for both sleeves. And to join your squares, just make sure your squares are facing the same side before you start joining them. You can choose which side you want to be the wrong side and which one is going to be the right side. It's very much up to you. Just make sure your squares are all facing the same side before start joining them. And to join them, actually I'm going to use the same yarn color I have used to make the last round, but it's very much up to you to use any yarn color of your choice. The reason I'm using the same yarn color is just because I want to make the perfect invisible joining. Like as you can see, this is how I have joined the back panel, and this is how it looks like. I'm not yet done. I still have to continue until I have fully joined the back panel, but this is the outside of the cardigan. This is how it's going to look like, and this is the inside of the cardigan. And I'm going to join my squares using slip stitch, and I'm going to start in this back loops, or actually for the square that's facing me, I'm going to start in this loop that's facing the other side, which is actually the back loop. just insert the hook, and remember, since in each corner there are 2 chains, actually you're going to start in those chain spaces. One of them, just chain 1 to fully attach your yarn, insert the hook back into that same stitch, grab your next square, and for the next square actually you're going to grab the loop that's facing you. So actually, which means you're going to use the loops that are facing each other for each square. And you're going to join your squares using the slip stitch method. Just pull through the yarn like that. Now you have 2 loops on the hook. Now pull through this first loop through the first loop. That's slip stitch. Just do the same thing into the next chain like that. And remember, you're only grabbing 1 loop. Slip stitch like that. And that's just what you're going to do to join all your pieces together. So just continue slip stitching in each stitch all the way until the end. Do not skip any stitch. And remember to work only in 1 loop for each square. Actually, just try to work only in 1 loop at a time per square. And just remember, you're only working into these loops that are facing each other. So just go ahead until you are done, and this is how your work must start to look like this. This is going to be the inside of the cardigan, and this is going to be the outside of the cardigan, which means the outside of the cardigan, this is how it's going to look like. So this is the reason I'm using the same yarn color as the one I have used for the last round, actually just to create this perfect invisible joining. And this is going to be the inside of my cardigan. So just go ahead until you reach this part to come show how I'm going to attach this next 2 squares to this first 2 squares. So once you reach this point, just continue actually doing the same thing that you have been doing throughout. Remember also to work into this chain 2 spaces like I said in the corners. Do not skip them. So once you are done joining your first 2 squares together, next you are going to attach your next 3rd and 4th square. And then actually just going to repeat the same thing. You have attached your first 2 squares together. Just try to look for this chain 2 spaces in the corners like this. Insert the hook in there as well as into the first chain 2 in the other squares. In the other square I mean. Just slip stitch like that into the next chain as well. Slip stitch. So just go ahead, do the same thing you have done for joining your first squares together until you have fully joined all your squares together. And this is just how your things are going to look like. Don't worry about this gap in between here, just looking like this because you haven't joined them this way. But you're going actually to fill up this space once you start joining your squares from the other side, actually from the other side going down like this. For now, just go ahead until you have joined all your squares together like these ones until you reach this point. Make sure at the end here you must also complete this last chain 2 spaces in these last corners as well. Then before you cut off the yarn, just chain 1 and you can cut off the yarn. It's actually just the same process you're going to do until you have fully joined all your squares together, depending on the panel that you are working on. In this case, I have just demonstrated how I'm going to join my squares, but I have used the sleeves. That's why I'm only having 3 squares. So just go ahead until you have fully joined your squares and before you cut off the yarn. So next, actually, I'm just going to show how you are going to join your squares across like this. But in this case, let me just show on the back panel that I've already done halfway. This is how the thing is looking like. So let me just show you how I'm going to join my squares across like this, having one side already joined. So now I'm just going to do the same process, joining them like this. And I'm going to demonstrate it on the back panel that I have already done it halfway off camera. Just start off by making a slip knot. starting this chain to one of the chain in the corners, chain on to fully attach the yarn, insert the hook back into the same loop as well as into the first stitch for the next square, which is actually also the first one. Just slip stitch like that into the next loop as well. You are still working in the corner, slip stitch. So just go ahead, do the same thing in each stitch across all the way until the end. Like that. So just go ahead all the way until you reach this point. Once you reach this point, I'll come meet you here to come show how I'm going to do this part. So once you reach this point, actually just try to look for this chain spaces in here. You can just actually just slip stitch in one of the chain space, even one of them, at least just to avoid having so many spaces between. Now you have to move to the other side. Actually you have to move across this part that you have joined to this other side and look for one of these chain spaces in the corner here, just to fill up this space to avoid having so many spaces between your granny squares. So just go ahead, slip stitching in each stitch like usual all the way until the end, and actually just to repeat the same process until you have fully joined all your squares together. So just go ahead doing that, slip stitching all the way until the end here. Once you reach the end, just chain one cut of the yarn. Then I'll meet you once I have already joined all my squares together to come show how I'm going to join all my panels together. Next, after you are done joining your granny squares together, next you are going to join all your panels together like I said, and you're going to start off with the back panel. Whereas for the back panel, the wrong side must be facing down like this, and you are going to place the front panels on top of it. So for the front panels, we actually make sure the right side is the one that's facing the back panel, and the wrong side is the one that's facing up. Both front panels, make sure the wrong sides are the one facing up and the right side is facing the back panel like this. And actually just going to join them the same way you have joined your granny squares together. And these are your sleeves. Actually just make sure your sleeves you also tend to make sure the wrong side is the one that's out like this, and you're actually going to place your sleeves here. Just try to fold your sleeves like this and try to mark the middle stitch with a stitch marker and try to place it here at the shoulder of your cardigan after you have joined your shoulders, to make sure to avoid unnecessary movements when you're joining your sleeves or when you're attaching your sleeve to the cardigan. And just do the same thing on the other side as well. To join your front panels to the back panel, just try to make a slip knot, and you're going to use the same yarn color you have used to join your squares together. And actually just going to start again in these corners. Chain one to fully attach the yarn, insert the hook back into that same loop, which is actually the back loop, as well as into the next loop for the back panel, and actually just make sure you're starting in the corner. So just go ahead, do the same thing by working only into these loops that are facing each other, which are front loops only, and continue slip stitching until you have fully joined your front panels to the back panel before you start attaching your sleeves to the cardigan. So just go ahead, do the same thing all the way until the end. Once you reach the end here, just chain one cut of the yarn, then do the same thing on the other shoulder here before you start attaching your sleeves. And actually your sleeves, you're going to attach them here. Actually I'll meet you once I reach this point to come demonstrate how I'm going to attach the sleeves on one side, so you can do the other side on your own, because the other side I'm going to do it on camera. chain one, and you can cut off the yarn before you start attaching the sleeve to the cardigan. And actually this is just the same procedure we're going to repeat on the other shoulder to attach the front panel to the back panel. To attach the sleeve, of which the other side I'm going to do it completely off camera, just make sure the wrong side, like I said, is the one that's out for your sleeve, and make sure your sleeves are like this, because this part is the one that's going to be under your arms. So just fold your sleeve like this and try to look for the middle part, which is this one. So you can just try to use this yarn tail here to make sure the thing is not moving, or if you have a stitch marker, you can use the stitch marker to attach this part together to avoid unnecessary movements. So to attach the sleeve to the cardigan, actually you have to start from here, going all the way up. But to make it easy, you are going to start here at the top going down, just to make sure the sleeve will be fully attached to the cardigan. Because if you start down here, you might be messing up with some stitches. So just try to start from the shoulders like this. So just make a slip knot. Always try to start in those chain 2 spaces in the corners. Chain 1 to fully attach the yarn, then just insert the hook back into the same stitch. Grab as well this first stitch for the for your sleeve, since your sleeve was like this. And this is the middle part. Just try to count like this, since there are 3 stitches. There are 3 sets of double crochet stitches like this, and this is the middle one. So just try to go for this middle stitch here. And sorry, while you are going into that middle stitch, always try to remember to work only into these front loops like usual, just to stick to the pattern, and try to slip stitch as usual like that. So just try to bring this lower part down here, and you're going to work only at the upper part first, upper part of the sleeve, and attaching it to the front panel first. So now just continue attaching your sleeve to the cardigan, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. And this is actually just the same procedure you're going to repeat throughout. So just continue doing the same thing all the way until you reach this point. Once you reach this point, I'll meet you here to come show you how I'm going to do this point, or actually the next step from here. So just continue doing this all the way until the end. Once you reach the end here, which is very much at the end of the sleeve, just try to finish off like you usually finish your projects. Chain 1, and you can cut off the yarn, so you can come start again from here, the top, going down the sleeve. Chain 1 like that, and you can cut off the yarn. So just try to flip your project like this, so you can start working on the other side. And I'm just going to repeat the same thing you've done on the other side. Or if you find it easy to start working from the other side, you actually can just bring the sleeve here, so you can bring the side of the cardigan as well like this, which is, this case is the back panel like this, so you can work starting from here going all the way up. But in my case, I just want to make sure my things are all in a good place. You can start from the top as well going down, the same thing I have done on the other side. So just make a slip knot. Start in that chain 2, one of the chain 2 space in the not into the chain 2 space, I mean into the same space you have started when you have joined your sleeve to the cardigan. When you have attached it on the other side, try to look for one of the chain 2 space in the corner on the back of the cardigan, and just continue doing the same process until you have fully attached your sleeve to a cardigan. So just go ahead repeating the process all the way until you reach this point here. I'll meet you once I reach this here to come show the next step. Actually, which is the next step, you're just going to attach your sleeve together like this and the side of the cardigan all the way down. Once you are done attaching this side of the cardigan, I mean this side of the sleeve as well to the cardigan, now just try to bring your pieces together like this so you can start attaching the side of the cardigan all the way down, or you can start just bringing your sleeves together like this so you can start attaching the side of your sleeves together. Whatever way you prefer. It's either to start with the sleeves or the side of the cardigan. Just chain one to fully attach, to fully secure your work. Insert the hook back into the same stitch. Try to look for one of the chain one in the corner for the other side of the sleeve, and just continue slip stitching in each front loop stitch all the way down here until you reach here at the end of the sleeve. So just go ahead until you are done, and this is just the same procedure you're going to repeat until you have fully joined all your pieces, or let me say until you have joined all your panels together. Sleeves, since they are now short sleeves and I want to make them long, so which means I'm now going to switch to granny stitch instead of just continuing with granny squares. As you can see, this sleeve I have already done it off camera, and this is how it looks like. So I'm just going to do the same thing on this other sleeve on camera. To begin, actually just make a slip knot. You can start in any stitch, and don't try to skip these chain spaces between here, which are in your corners. Just make a slip knot in there. Chain one to fully attach your yarn. Then make 3 double crochet back into the same space. Or instead of going back into the same stitch, you can just go in this open space here and make 3 double crochet into that same space. Next, make 3 double crochet into the next space. And just continue making 3 double crochet in between each space all the way until the end. Like this. So just go ahead making 3 double crochet in between each space all the way until you reach this part. Once you reach this here, I'll meet you here to come show you the next step. Then once you reach this point, try to make a slip stitch on top of this first double crochet stitch you have started with to join your work. Chain one to close your work. Now make 3 double crochet into this space. And just continue making 3 double crochet in each space here all the way until the end. Once you reach the end, which is going to be here, just try to slip stitch on top of this first double crochet stitch you have started with as usual. Then you're going to repeat it one more time to have 3 rounds of this same yarn color before you switch to the different yarn color. So just go ahead doing that all the way until you reach this point. Once you reach here, just make 3 double crochet in here, slip stitch on top of the first double crochet stitch you started with here, chain 1, and just continue doing the same thing, repeating this round 2 all the way until the end. I'll meet you once I get at the end of the third round. So once you reach this point, which is at the end of the third round, just try to slip stitch on top of this first double crochet stitch you have started with to join your work, chain 1, and you can cut off the yarn. Next we're going to switch to a different yarn color. Make a slip knot, and you're going to start in any space of your choice. And actually this is just the same pattern you're going to repeat until your sleeve measures at least about 18.5 to 19 inches long. Make 3 double crochet back into that same space like usual, and just continue making 3 double crochet in each space, and just continue alternating between each color, and just make sure each color have a total of 3 rounds. Continue alternating between 3 rounds of each color until your sleeve measures at least about 18.5 to 19 inches long. And as you go, when you are switching from the granny squares to this pattern, actually your sleeve will start to shape a bell shape like this. As you can see, this part is a bit wider than this part with granny squares. And this is just how your sleeves are going to look like. So just go ahead until you are fully done with your sleeves.